Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Food Technology Information Session. I'd like to ask that you put yourself on mute and turn your camera off for clear sound from the presenter. You will also be receiving a copy of the slide deck in your email early next week, so please don't worry about taking notes as we go along. Before we get started, the British Columbia Institute of Technology acknowledges that our campuses are located on the unceded traditional territories of the Coast Salish nations of Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam. Here is this evening's agenda. The video portion, which is our next slide, is not going to be shown here. We're going to ask you to just watch it after the session at your convenience. At this time, I'd like to pass it on to our program head, Dr. Erin Friesen.
Thank you very much for joining me tonight on a beautiful sunny day. I'm sure there's other things you could be doing, but I appreciate you guys taking some time to hear about our food technology program. So as Julie mentioned, I'm the program head. I both teach in the program as well as I do administration. So if you have questions, I would be the one to reach out to, and if you have registration concerns or whatnot. So I do a lot of the behind the scenes stuff. So just a little bit of what a food technologist might do. So some examples of some jobs are you could be working for a vegan company developing a cream cheese. You could be measuring vitamin C levels in orange juice and coming up with the nutrition facts table that you might see on a food product. Or you could be working in a facility that manufactures pasta, and you could be inspecting their line and making sure that the pasta being produced is meeting certain quality aspects, as well as making sure that it's safe. We are not a program that makes nutrition requirements, nutrition recommendations. So if you're interested in that, you would be looking to find a dietitian program, but we do have a general understanding of nutrition because when you're developing a new product, you want to understand how changing an ingredient might change the nutritional content of a product. So there's a little bit of an overlap between our program and nutrition, but we are not dietitians. So the food technology department has a few different program options. So I'm going to be spending most of this info session talking about our diploma. And our diploma is now called a Diploma in Food Processing, Safety and Quality. So that's what most of my info session will be, but I will touch on these other areas. We also have a Food Safety Associate Certificate, which is a part-time program that you can take in evenings and weekends. We also have a fewer smaller programs, a micro-credential on HACCP, which is a food safety program. We have a joint micro-credential with UBC, and we also have individual courses. So if you just wanted to take a course here and there, you could take those courses, and then they can ladder into a larger certificate if you want. So food processing safety and quality is what the diploma is, and this is a picture of the students who just are graduating this year from the program and are entering into the program from year 1 and year 2. It's a 2-year diploma. Entry can be right out of high school, or you maybe have post-secondary schools, or maybe you're coming from another country. Students do enter from a variety of different backgrounds. And we renamed the program just this year, which is quite exciting because one of the questions I always get asked is, what is food technology? And I essentially answer by saying it's about understanding the food processing industry and making sure that food is safe and high quality. So this new name definitely represents what you're learning in our program. So what is food processing? It's understanding how food is manufactured. And so you'd typically be working in a food manufacturing facility, and you'd be making sure that what that company is making is both safe. You don't want to be having any food outbreaks where people are getting sick from listeria or salmonella. So we need to make sure that that food is safe. And we also want to make sure that that food is high quality. A company, when they're selling their product, they want to make sure that every time you go and buy that product, it's the same color, it's the same texture, because the brand, people are buying it for the brand, and they want to know that, you know, when they buy it, they're getting a certain product. So what we do in the program is we teach you all the skills, very hands-on. We teach you on all the tests that you might be using when you're in one of these companies testing the quality of the food. So this could be shelf life testing, quality testing like texture. We do taste testing. So it's all the tests involved in making sure the food is safe and high quality. We also teach on how to develop new food products. So maybe a company wants to develop a new salt reduced product or a new flavor chip. So you could be working in the R&D department developing the new products. So we are providing you the skills, and when you enter into industry, industry definitely recognize that our grads are job ready and able to perform the jobs that they would be hiring you for. So is the food diploma for you? If you like science and are curious behind science, what I personally like about it is food science dabbles a little bit in all the different sciences and then applies it to food. So I personally find it exciting because I can take general sciences and apply it to something very specific. The food industry often requires you to be very process oriented and accurate because you'll be collecting data and recording it. So that is very key to be making sure you're recording the right data. Are you able to work independently? If you are, this is good because you'll often be, collecting things on the production floor by yourself. But at the same time, the food industry has a lot of different people working in different roles. And so if you can communicate with others and work with others, then it's a good profession for you. And it's a very exciting industry, fast paced. It's also a very exciting place to work because you get to eat whatever they're manufacturing. So often a very tasty career path. So what do you need to get in? High school is our minimum entry requirement. And I'll have a slide later that talks specifically about what the entry requirements are. You should enjoy science because you will be applying science to food, and excited about learning how foods are made and making sure that the food is as safe and high quality as it can be. What we do in this diploma is it's a 2-year full-time diploma. So what that means is that you would be at school from September to December taking classes, and then from January to the end of May. And the classes generally run 4 to 5 days a week, and you generally be in class from about 8:30 to 3:30 or 4:30 each day. So it is a set curriculum, and so we register, the courses, and then you would then be jumping around from course to course with the same group of people. So it's a cohort model. So the same people that you start the program with are going to be the same people that you end the program with, and you'll be taking all the same classes with that same group of people. So we are training you for the basics of food technology. There's a slide later that covers the courses, so I'll leave that till later. It is a combination of lectures and labs, and about half of your time is spent doing labs and a half of it is in class discussing case stories, lectures, and learning more of the theory behind foods. Another exciting thing about our program is we have 2 capstone projects or more industry related projects. One is specifically where industry submits projects. And so during summer, I reach out to industry and I say, what challenges are you having, or is there anything you would like a student to help you with? And then companies submit their projects to me, and it could be they want to extend their shelf life, or maybe they want to understand how their product is different from the competitor's product, or maybe they want to look at new packaging. So the food manufacturers in British Columbia will submit their projects to me, and I generally get almost twice as many projects as I do students. So then in September, what I do is I present, this is in your second year, what I do is I present the projects to the students and I say which one interests you the most, and students will get to pick which project they want to work on. And then this becomes kind of like a consulting project. So you would be doing this project for your industry sponsor. You work on it over the next 8 months, and then at the end of the 8 months, you present back your results to industry. And we are here to support you through that process to get, help you get the right feedback for that company. So that's one industry project. And the second industry project we have is a product development project. And so generally we have a theme each year, and students are then asked to develop a new product. And if you've ever seen the show Dragon's Den, you go through the whole, this is my product, this is what I'm selling it for, here's my packaging, and this is what makes my product unique. And you make a pitch about your product to a group of people. And we actually have a little bit of a contest to see who's developed the best product. So this year's theme was the students develop vegan burgers, and I can tell you the burgers they they developed were excellent and competed on the same level as those products that were available out in the market. And I think in some cases they developed burgers that were even better than what's out on the market. So we're very tied to industry and both our curriculum. So we have guest lectures come in, and so everything we're teaching is with the focus on jobs and training you for that job when you leave our program. So the courses that we have, your first year is a little bit more core courses. And so we do have some science and some math, some chemistry in that first year and communication courses because we want you to have strong communication skills when you leave the program. So there's core sciences. And then we also have courses in business and operations management because you will be working in a food manufacturing facility. So we want you to also have an idea of how much things cost or, what's involved in shipping product from one area to another. So it's just a small taste of business to get you a general understanding of how a food company might operate. We then have 3 courses in food processing. And in these courses, we like to expose you to as many food industries as we can. So dairy industry, yogurt, meat, sausages, potato chips. I know there's so many more, wine. So with each of these foods, we will manufacture the food, and then we look at different variables that might influence the quality. So with potato chips, for example, some of the potatoes might be stored in the refrigerator, some might be stored at room temperature, and then how did that impact the quality of the potato chips? We have 2 courses in food microbiology because we want you to understand, food safety. Food microbiology is a huge part of food safety, but also shelf life testing. So when a food has an expiry date of 4 weeks, let's say, where did that shelf life of 4 weeks come from? We have a few courses in food analysis, which is more the chemistry behind food, so developing that nutrition facts table. We have a few courses in quality control, so that's color, how viscous, how thick a fluid might be, the texture of a food, taste testing. We do quite a few weeks on taste testing, which is fun. So those are all tests that you might then be doing once you're working in the food manufacturing industry. And then, as I mentioned, we have that product development course. So we take you through all the steps of developing a new product. And at the end, you actually will have a product that you've developed. So just general flow through our program. As I mentioned, you can enter into our program from high school. So you see that in the top left. But we do have a good portion of our students who've either gone to university and have finished or haven't finished, but they want to learn something more specific. So then they might come to BCIT for our diploma, and we train them in the 2-year program, Food Processing Safety and Quality. And right after that, you can start working in the food industry. So I would say about 70% of our grads just start working in the food industry right away. Our graduates who are just finishing in the last 2 weeks, a lot of them have lined up interviews, a lot of them have jobs already, so jobs are there for when our students graduate. However, some people do want to go on and get a degree and a bachelor's degree, and our program ladders into two different programs quite easily, but they're quite different. So if you are interested in a bachelor's degree, the 2 that I would recommend to you is either the Bachelor's of Environmental Public Health, and that's where you would be inspecting restaurants. It's a good portion of the job. But you could also be inspecting other places where the public might get sick. So that could be swimming pools, it could be beauty salons. So anywhere where the public might get sick. The British Columbia government has public health inspectors. And so if you want to be a public health inspector doing those inspections, you have to have gone through the BCIT environmental health program. So our program ladders very nicely into that program. And then if you want to become an inspector, you can become an inspector after. The other option that some of our students go through is maybe they're interested in now how a food company operates and they want to move into sales or they want to move into management or supervising production. So the Bachelor's of Business Administration at BCIT is a 1-year program after our diploma, and we ladder into that program as well. It's just a slightly different career path. So if that avenue interests you more, then you could take the BBA and still work in the food industry, or you could switch to another industry after that particular program. And I would say we have each year about 10 to 15% of the students go the BBA route, and then maybe about 20% of the students go the environmental health route. So both are possible, but not needed because you can work in the food industry right away after. So for career outlook, most of our grads get work within 2 months of graduation. This year, as I mentioned, I'm seeing a lot of students were hired even before they graduated and multiple interviews. So right now, there seems to be lots of people hiring. The British Columbia food manufacturing industry ranges in size. So there's a lot of small startup companies, but there's also the larger manufacturers like Coca-Cola has a plant. There's the dairy companies, so Saputo. So it does range in size, and depending on where you choose to work, you learn different things. So if you end up in a smaller company, you're getting exposed to marketing. You might have some roles in sales. So generally with the smaller companies, you kind of have a little bit more broad of a responsibility. And then when you're working in a larger company, you're a very specific role. So it differs there as well, which makes it kind of exciting. And as I mentioned, what we're training you for, you definitely have the skills that employers are looking for. We hear that time and time again from industry, is that industry very much appreciates our grads because of the training they've received. Another thing that we've heard recently from the BC food manufacturing industry is that there is a huge demand for people who have mid-management skills. And so they need food safety experts. And so our grads who have graduated from a few years ago, who now have a couple years experience combined with what they've learned, they're hugely in demand right now. And industry says there's not enough people with that food safety management skills. So just to highlight a few of our graduates, Graham graduated a few years ago, and he's currently a quality assurance technician at the Gourmet Bakery. And actually, I think I have the company name wrong. The Original Cakery, sorry, the Original Cakery. And they are manufacturing a variety of different cakes that you're going to find at stores like Safeway or Save-On. So it's tuxedo cake, chocolate cake. And so they're manufacturing those cakes. And so he's responsible for the quality of those cake products. And Billy graduated from our program also just a couple years ago, and he has got himself into a food safety manager position. He jumped actually a few times in order to get to this position. And I do find sometimes that our grads, when they're in the early career stages, do have to do a little bit of hopping to get themselves up to the higher management positions. But he started at Fresh Point, and so they're making a lot of produce, like pre-cooked, pre-washed and sliced, and on, when you're buying a fruit tray, let's say, and you got the dip in the middle. So he's at a produce company, and he started there, but then he went over to Sunrise Poultry, and then laddered back into Fresh Point to get up into a higher management position. So that's where he is. And he's actually on a road trip down to the States right now, talking to suppliers down in the States. And Yuna is a recent graduate as well, and she's also been able to get into a manager position. And I just want to highlight that the grads that I'm talking about are grads that have only done the 2-year diploma. So they just completed the 2-year diploma. They haven't gone on to do any additional education. Yuna is quality assurance manager for Gate Gourmet. And Gate Gourmet, it's a little bit unique of a company, but they're located right by the airport, and they're producing the food trays that you're getting on airlines. So from Air Canada to Air Japan to Air India, all these foods are being manufactured at this one facility. And so she's responsible for the quality of the food that's getting on the airlines. Huge role, because nobody would want to be getting food poisoning when you're stuck on an airplane, on a 10-hour flight, and especially when everybody would be getting food poisoning because everybody's eating the same meal. So huge amount of responsibility. Helen, we'll be seeing the same picture a few times. Helen is the student second from the left. Helen got her first job at Purdy's. So Helen graduated 2023, so 2 years ago. Her first job was quality control at Purdy's. As I mentioned, one of the benefits of working in the food industry, you get to eat what you're manufacturing. So Purdy's would be an excellent job that I don't know if I'd have the restraint to stop eating chocolates, and I might have to quit because of that. But she was responsible for quality at Purdy's, but she has now moved on to Bento Express, which is not a sushi restaurant, but it's a sushi manufacturer that's making packaged sushi that you'll be finding in grocery stores, convenience stores, cafeterias. And so they're pre-manufacturing that sushi. So she's responsible now for quality at that sushi manufacturer. As I mentioned, we'll be seeing the same photo a few times. Hanny, the first student on the left, she also graduated 2023, and she is currently a consultant working for Sirocco Food and Wine Consulting in the Okanagan. And she also has another job lined up at a fruit manufacturer, I believe, starting in July. So this picture here is just showing our students at a volunteering opportunity. We're very connected to industry, and so we have a lot of opportunities for you to link with industry at events. So anyways, this picture I'll be showing again one more time, just to talk about another one of our students, but that's a graduate. And the final, I think, grad story I have for now, obviously we have lots of grad stories, but these are students back from 2015, and I am going a little back in time with these students. But Andrew, Elia, and Ariella graduated in 2015, and they took the product that they developed in the product development course. So we have that course that helps you develop a new food product. So they developed this food product while they were here at BCIT, but they were so passionate about their product that they actually took that idea. And at first they were just renting a facility, but eventually their sales grew so much that they built their own manufacturing facility. They have their own equipment, and they're now manufacturing on a much larger scale this product called Tempe, which you may see at farmers markets, you may find in stores, but they are selling a lot of it to restaurants as well. So that's a product that they have now turned into a company. So other career paths, we do have a large number of grads who are currently working for the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. So this is, the government also has a responsibility that food manufacturers are making food safely. And so government has people that will go into food manufacturers and inspect what they're doing. So that's a career path, a nice career path, a nice option for people. As I mentioned, some people will go into the environmental health program, and if they go into the environmental health program, they could become a public health inspector, or some of those students who go through our program and then go through environmental health programs still end up working in the food industry. So it's not, limiting your options if you decide to go on and do additional education. Some of our students are product developers. They're developing new products for companies. Some get into ingredient sales. Others get into more on the operations, production. So there's a wide option of career paths. Some work in the packaging field right now. So lots of different options, which does make it exciting too, is that, you have options to move to different areas later in your career. So a testimonial here from a student from, I believe, 2020. I chose to study food technology at BCIT because I wanted to utilize both my past educational experience in science and my interest in cooking. As with most programs at BCIT, the practical labs were most enjoyable aspect, but I also really enjoy the product development course in the second year, which is what I'm aiming for later in my career. And so Andrew is working at a produce manufacturing facility. And I have another testimonial here. As I mentioned, we have the same picture popping up here. So Lucas is the student, the right-hand side, but not the far right, second from right. So Lucas indicated his testimonial. For many reasons, I couldn't complete a post-secondary program before, but my experience at BCIT has been delightful and has opened multiple doors for me. Whether future studies or gaining experience in the food industry, I am deeply grateful to have chosen food technology as my career path. And so Lucas has moved to Europe. I'm actually unaware with what he's doing, but he was at the end of his program, he was very satisfied with what he'd learned in our program. So as I mentioned, I was going to talk mostly about the diploma. And so that was our 2-year diploma. That's where we do see a large number of our students coming through, but we also have other options for you. So if you have some experience in the food industry, or you have a degree already and maybe you just want a little bit of training in the food industry, these are the options for you, and they don't require a large time commitment either. So our BCIT Food Safety Associate Certificate is 7 courses. I think there's 3 mandatory courses and then 4 electives, and you can take them at your own pace. Some of them are online, others are 3-day workshops, which are also online. So this particular program is very flexible, but it does not have the hands-on skills. So if you are wanting to learn lab skills, these programs are more just on knowledge and food safety plans. So you do learn how to create a food safety plan, which is definitely a skill that industry wants, but you're not learning the hands-on skills. We have the Food Safety Management Micro-Credential. It's a joint program with UBC. 3 courses run at UBC, 1 course it runs at BCIT. Admissions to this program is through UBC. So if you have questions about entering into that program, you would be wanting to contact UBC. And then we teach the 4th course, the 4th and last course in this food safety management micro-credential. It was funded by the BC Futures Grant last year, which means that if you were a BC resident, that program was free to take, but we don't know next year if the funding has been approved for that particular program. We have a 2-course micro-credential, which is a food safety and preventative controls micro-credential. And so that's very specific to HACCP plans. So companies, most companies in Canada are going to be required to have a HACCP plan. And so they need to have people who are trained in HACCP. So this particular micro-credential will be beneficial to pretty much all companies in Canada. We also have individual courses. So if you're working for a dairy company, for example, we have some dairy courses. Maybe you just want to take one HACCP course. We have that flexibility in our flexible learning that you can just take one course and see if you want to keep going with the courses. So for admissions information, I'll just talk a little bit about how to get into our program. Registration opens in October. So our program, and this is the diploma. So I'll just be very clear. We're talking about the diploma again right here. Our diploma starts every September. And so every September we take a number of students in your cohort that move through the 2-year program together. And so it starts in September, but we take the applications starting in October the year before. So starting October 1st, we take with students, and as long as you meet our entry requirements, you will be granted a spot in the program. And we continue taking applicants until the program fills, at which point we then start a wait list. So if you are interested in the program, it's in your best interest to apply early so that you are given that seat, because at a certain point, a wait list does start. So if you are interested in applying, being aware of what those entrance requirements are definitely going to speed up the process. If you have any questions about your entrance requirements, if you're meeting them or not, program advising is where I would suggest you go and say, this is the course I've taken. Does it meet the entry requirements? So program advising is going to be the best person to ask questions to. You're obviously welcome to ask me the questions, but I will probably pass them off to admissions, because admissions is the one that makes the final decision on whether or not they're going to approve what you've taken or not. Be aware of the application dates, so just making sure that you're applying at the right time. I believe there's some documents you're going to have to upload, so making sure you have those documents ready. And then you're going to be applying through the Education Planner, BC Education Planner, but there should be a link on our website also that links you to that Education Planner BC. So what the entrance requirements are for the diploma, and we don't have the same entrance requirements for the flexible learning. So if you're wanting to take flexible learning, we know you've all come from different backgrounds, so you can enter with, a variety of different backgrounds into flexible learning. But for the diploma, we require people have English 12 with 67%. And a lot of people might be coming from other areas, and so there's also equivalent ways to meet this English 12. So you can take, different English tests to prove that you have the English requirement. But I am not the person to be asking for those. That's program advising, who you're going to want to check your English to see if you've met the English entry requirement. Similarly, we have a requirement of British Columbia Chemistry 11 at 67%. So if you're coming from a university where you've taken a chemistry course, that's going to be something that admissions looks to see if you have the equivalent of what's in Chemistry 11 here in British Columbia. We also require Math 12, and Math 12 can either be Pre-Calculus 12 or Foundations of Math, and depending on which math you've taken, there's a different entry requirement. And so that's what we definitely look for. And then there's good to have skills. So if you want to be successful in this program, communication skills, reading, writing are key. You need to be interested in doing lab work. You need to be able to pay attention to details. Problem solving, decision making is something that happens in the food industry. Things go wrong. I actually found it very exciting when I was working in the food industry, and something would go wrong or a customer complaint would come in. And I know we're not supposed to get customer complaints, but for me that was exciting, trying to figure out why something went wrong, or why did they find a cookie in a bag of potato chips. That didn't happen, but being able to then go back and try and figure out the paperwork, what happened on that particular day, what were we manufacturing. Those are things that you might find yourself doing when you're working in industry. And being able to work with others, people skills. You do in the food industry have to communicate with a variety of people on the production floor, communicate back to management what you found or what the data is. So communication skills are key. So laddering opportunities, as I mentioned, the diploma is 2 years. And if you want to turn that into a bachelor's degree, there are options at BCIT to get a bachelor's degree. Bachelor of Environmental Health and the BBA, Bachelor's of Business Administration, are the two common routes, but there are other options too. So I'm not just saying that those are the only options. There are definitely a few different ways to get a bachelor's degree if you want to go on and do additional education, which is not needed. And then with our flexible learning, you can start with the micro-credential and then ladder that into the Food Safety Associate Certificate. Unfortunately, however, the Food Safety Associate Certificate does not ladder into the diploma. They're two different focuses. One's on very specific food safety, and then our diploma is more on skills and getting you that job in the food manufacturing industry. So program advising, as I've highlighted, they're the ones who I would reach out to if you have questions about entrance requirements. If you have questions about finance, BCIT has a department that can help you determine if you're eligible for scholarships. And I see Julie mentioned something there, but I'll leave it to you when you pop back on to mention something. And if you do want to meet with program advising, they have a variety of different ways you can reach out to them. Email, you can come in person, you can make a phone call with them, you can have a virtual meeting with them, and they're here to try and help you find out if this is the program for you, if you meet the entry requirements, or maybe suggest something else based on what you're looking for or where you're coming from. So I will pass it off to Julie, but before I do, what I do want to say, I love working for BCIT. I've worked for other post-secondaries and I've gone to different post-secondaries. And BCIT really is at the soul looking out for the best of the students. We're here to support you, and there's a number of different ways that we try and support you. And Julie will be going through a few of those options here for helping you.
Hi, everyone. Just going to take back the presentation. Now, thank you, Erin, for that wonderful presentation. It was very informative and thorough. Moving from academics, however, I'd like to let you know that BCIT is committed to supporting students in a holistic sense. We want you to succeed not only in your academics, but also outside of school. Some of the student services are available to you as a prospective student, and others will be available to you once you become an enrolled student. Here are some of the important student supports that I'd like to mention. If you are Indigenous, BCIT's Indigenous Initiatives Department is there for you to ensure a smooth transition into your first year. They offer peer-to-peer mentorship, a welcoming gathering place, and provide clarification on Indigenous funding. BCIT's awards, scholarships, and bursaries are listed on our Financial Aid and Awards webpage. I would like to mention that we have a President's Entrance Award. Selection is based on academic achievement and also on volunteer and community service. Please contact Financial Aid directly for more information. BCIT is committed to providing assistance to students with permanent or temporary disabilities. If you have been accepted to our program and believe you may need accommodation to be successful, I encourage you to connect with our Accessibility Services Department. BCIT Student Health Services is a health clinic located at the Burnaby campus. They provide medical care for current BCIT students year-round. We also have a counseling and student development department available to help you enhance your educational performance and maximize your success as a student at BCIT. Last but not least, our recreation services promotes, encourages, and enables the practice of physical well-being. We consider recreation an integral part of campus life and welcome all students to enjoy their services. I encourage you to follow us on social media at any one of these outlets: Facebook, X, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, LinkedIn, to find out different things about the program and the profession itself, also events that are coming up. Specifically, Food Tech is on Instagram. Take the time to follow this account, see what the students do, student projects, events, what they're about to do, what they have done. It just gives you a unique glance at the program on a more day-to-day basis. In addition to that, if you wanted to book a tour, spend a day in a program, come to a big info session where we have multiple programs and faculty and staff in person, or another info session, or book an appointment with an advisor, these are some of the links that will help redirect you. I'd like to now open it up for our Q&A. And first up is Jen, I think. Is the study permit for international students sponsored by the program?
So I'm not sure exactly what you mean by sponsor, but let me just tell you as much as I know about study permits. So in Canada, certain programs are eligible for study permits and certain programs are eligible for postgraduate work permits. Our program, you are eligible for a study permit, and you can work at the same time that you're studying. There's just a cap on how many hours you can work while you're a student. And then when you graduate, you are eligible to apply for a postgraduate work permit. So that means you can stay here and work in Canada for a certain number of years following the completion of our program. So I hope I've answered your question. If I didn't, maybe try asking again, or this would be something that I'd really suggest you reach out to the international department. They're here to help, help you with that process of coming to study here if that's what you're wanting to do. The next question is Anita, and I'm assuming maybe you are a BCIT employee and there are opportunities at BCIT to be funded to take courses. So if you're interested in our flexible learning, I would say, I imagine you might be able to get funding to take our flexible learning courses. If you are wanting to take our diploma, I would say it might be a little bit of a challenge because our diploma is designed to be taking all the courses at the same time. So you might have to take a leave of absence in order to take our diploma program. And yes, you can challenge prerequisites. So we do have students that enter into level 2 or enter into level 3, or if you've taken a course that you think deserves credits, you can apply for credits for certain courses. So we do have students that apply for credits here and there. So there's different options there. So I'm not sure of the specifics there. That might be a question for HR about funding and whatnot. I would reach out to HR, I think, for that. Is it a highly competitive program to get in? So we start in September with the end, like you can apply in September. And as I mentioned, we just are first come, first serve, I guess you could say. So we won't be looking at how good of a student you are. As long as you meet our entry requirements, you're given a seat. And depending on the year, we do fill up sometimes by May. This year, we still do have spots. So if you were interested in the program, there are still spots available for this coming September. But always it's a toss-up depending on the year, how we're doing on registration. So I would say some years competitive, other years, as you get into summer, there might still be a spot or two left.
Couple more questions in the chat. If you also want to raise your hand, there's a little icon with the hand. You can take yourself off mute and go ahead and raise your hand if you have a question.
So yes, Anita's asking if we're accepting students right now. Yes, so we're still accepting right now for September. We have not hit the wait list. So if you're wanting to register for September 2026, please apply, and I look forward to seeing you in September. If you're considering coming in September 2027, then you'd want to wait till October and apply after October 1st, because we won't be looking for students for October. We won't be looking for students for the following September until this year starts, till September starts. What I want to also just mention is we do have a spend a day program. So if you're on the fence about whether or not you want to apply, and if you want to come and just spend the day with some of our students, we do have the spend a day. Julie mentioned that. The only problem is we've wrapped up for the year, and so we don't have students really on campus until September. But you're always welcome to come and visit me, and I can show you around the lab and show you what our area looks like. But if you also look at our Instagram kind of gives you an idea of what what our space looks like and what students might be doing. So Anita's would like to apply. I love that. That's an awesome question there. Advice to get you there. I think in your case, HR is who you're going to want to reach out to and find out what options are available for you. But as long as you meet the entry requirements, you can be granted a seat. If you're still in progress, let's say you're short your chemistry and you're making up chemistry through summer, I believe they can grant you conditional entry requirements, where it means, they're holding that spot for you while you make up your chemistry. And then I have a question here about employment rate of the program. And so every program does have stats, and I haven't looked at the latest stats, but and so I'm unfortunately going to take a guess, but I think 90 something percent. And Julie, you might know for the whole School of Health what the employment rate is.
I'm just going to look up the employment rate, but
Okay.
according to Work BC, 70% are employed full time. But I'm going to look at our BCIT stats as well. But this Work BC page will give you an idea of food technologists and similar programs, what the career overview is, annual earnings, and how many job openings there are and where in BC those job openings are. Just give me a moment and I'll pull up the BCIT specific stats.
I mean, just offhand, I haven't heard of any students having a challenge getting a job. So as I mentioned this year, all the students that are graduating are getting jobs. Some of our students go back and do school. So I think sometimes our numbers do get influenced by the fact that some students go back and continue on with school. Some students come here and just take it for fun and then go back to, their home country. So our numbers, I would say, aren't completely reflective, but everyone who has been looking for a job has been getting a job. And I believe it's within 2 months that, 65%, I think, of students get jobs. And I'm making up the numbers, I know, but that's what I remember the numbers to be. Now, another question here, what's the salary range for graduates? Starting salary is unfortunately a little bit low. So starting salary, like I was just speaking to a student today and he's being offered, so he just graduated or graduating right now, $24 an hour and $25 an hour is the two jobs that he's been choosing between. But there is, as I mentioned, a huge demand for students 3 years out. So once you have that experience, there's a large demand for food safety jobs, and that can range from $60,000 to $80,000 once you have a little bit of experience working in the food industry. Coca-Cola, for example, has a job posted right now that requires 3 years of work experience with a food training like ours, and they've posted theirs for over $100,000. Now, I don't want to say all the jobs in British Columbia are like that because we do have small manufacturers and big manufacturers. But one of the benefits of working for a large food manufacturing facility is their salaries are aligned with what they're paying in different parts of the world. And for example, in the United States, starting salary is $70,000. So it ranges. And I don't want to say that, this is what you should be getting when you graduate, because unfortunately, there is a lot of people competing for the entry positions in British Columbia. But $25 an hour is what the student today indicated he was being offered for his first job. And the benefit too is that what we're training you in, there's food manufacturing everywhere. And so there's jobs available across the country and other parts of the world as well. Um, and if you end up, let's say, working for the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, I believe those salaries around mid 60s. And the benefit of working for, let's say, the government is you get nice pension and vacation. And so there's different ranges and opportunities. And some of our students do in the early years have to hop around to get their salary up a little bit higher. So I see a question here that I'm not sure if I can read the full question. Oh, here it is. We are newcomers, have just arrived in March 2025. My son has graduated from a I think that's supposed to be Francophone high school and an open work permit. Does he need to study? Does he need a study permit to study in BCIT? He doesn't know what to study, so we need to meet with an advisor. Okay, so definitely one of the things I would advise before you register in our program is make sure that you're, committed to the full 2 years, because BCIT's programs are very specific. We're training you for a very specific job. So if you decide in 1 year that you want to switch to another program, sometimes you won't get very many credits for another program because each program is so specific. So I would want anybody who's choosing a particular program at BCIT to know that they're interested in that program, because you'll find that, if you change, you're almost starting back at zero. So I don't have the answer on whether or not you need a study permit, but definitely the advisor would be the route to go, who can look at, what you have and what's available to you. So program advising, the link's right there. Reach out to them and they can be able to get back to you or set up a meeting to answer your questions. And so Anita, you have a question. Definitely, if you want to just reach out to me, send me an email. My email's there and we can set up a Zoom. No, I guess it's not Zoom anymore, a Teams meeting, and I can just talk to you about the program. And if you happen to want to come see me, we can meet at school and we can talk that way too.
We have a couple more questions popping up in the chat. I'll give it another minute. But at this time, while we're waiting for those questions to come up, I'd like to thank Erin for her wonderful presentation and answering all these questions so thoroughly. We really appreciate you. Thank you, Erin. And thank you everybody at home for taking the time on this sunny evening to join us and learn more about food technology.
So
Erin,
Stephen,
go ahead.
yep. What are the entry requirements for the micro HACCP course? I believe there are none. We do recommend you be able to speak English and communicate in English, and we recommend you have some experience with the food industry. But as far as I know, there's no entry requirements into those. So the HACCP micro-credential is 2 courses. The first one is a online go at your own pace course, and then the second course is a 3-day workshop, which is offered online. Do we recommend volunteering opportunities or getting some experience? I would say no. I mean, once you come into the program, we try and get you as much industry contact as possible when you're in the program. And I mean, I would say we're expecting people to have zero knowledge of the food industry when they're starting our diploma. So I would say don't worry about trying to figure anything out before you enter into our diploma.
At this time, I'm going to stop the recording. And again, thank you all and have a great night.